Finally, our last speaker of the day is Carl Casale, Senior Agricultural Partner with Ospraie Ag Science. Carl is focused on identifying and investing the next generation of agricultural production technologies. His vision is helping provide both affordable food in a sustainable manner. And a key driver is really how to accelerate farmer adoption of these new technologies and practices. Carl brings over 3 decades of experience leading globally influential companies across the food and agricultural sectors. Please help me welcome Carl Casale.
Well, hello, and today it's great to be part of Exceed the Seed. And I'd like to talk about accelerating farmer adoption of new technologies and practices. And as both a venture capital investor and a farmer, I think I've got a pretty unique perspective or view on both the very front end of the process as well as the very back end of the process. And there's obviously a lot of differences, between what the requirements are of making a venture capital investment and what there are for a farmer to adopt new technology. But there are, I would say, probably more similarities than there are differences, and some very key points that are required for both investing as well as adopting new technology on the farm. And for me, it's very simple. There's 4 key questions that need to be answered before anybody would want to make an investment in a company, and before a farmer would want to use the technology that's basically being offered. So the first question is basically, what does it do? How does it do it? Where does it do it? And ultimately, why does this matter? And again, not super complicated, but it's amazing, how often people forget that these boxes must be checked along the way, or you're really not going to have a viable product concept. So again, what does it do? How does it do it? Where on the farm does it do it? And why does it matter? And I'll give an example of kind of these 4 critical questions that actually occurred in a conversation I had at a conference where early stage ag tech companies were basically pitching for Series A investment, which is early stage. It goes seed A, and then B, C, D, or whatever is necessary. And so basically, this was a plant growth stimulant. We've all seen and heard of those. Many of them are quite good and work. But when I asked the question of, well, what does it do? Well, it stimulates plant growth, and it has a chitosan-like mechanism in it. Well, anytime somebody has to use the word "like" to describe what their product is doing, it tells me they probably have not very well qualified what their project actually does. So I said, well, then, how does it do it? And the answer literally was, well, we're not sure. Okay, so you're describing something that works like something, and you really can't tell me how it works like something. So pretty concerning at this point in time. And I said, well, where does it fit on the farm? And they said, well, basically, since it's a plant growth stimulant, it's going to work on basically every variety across your farm that you've got. Now, I understand the power of deduction, and that might be a reasonable conclusion if there was data to support the base premise that was being made. And then the last question was, of course, well, then why does this all matter to me? When they said, well, almost with a tone of, well, you dummy, if you're promoting plant growth, you're going to get more fruit buds, and if you get more fruit buds, you're going to get higher yields, and therefore this is what you should go do. So that's about 3 leaps of faith in a row that are required to get from point A, to the endpoint, point D, with no data to support basically any of those mechanisms along the way. And I knew better because by the time they said it works like something, I was pretty well checked out at that point in time. But I had to ask the next question was, well, do you have data to support these claims? And the answer was, and we've all seen this, pulled out a really nice brochure and said, well, here's the farmer testimonials of farmers that are really, really happy with it. Now, we all know that that might be great, but a handful, 5, 10, I don't care if it's 100 farmer testimonials. There was no controls, there was no experimental design, there was no rigor that was basically provided at all to generate that information. And I don't use that word by coincidence. There's a difference between information and data, right? They were presenting some information to me and presenting it as data when it really wasn't that at all. So, the bottom line is, testimonials cannot replace data sets, and data sets replicated and presented transparently are both what investors and farmers are looking for, as they both look to mitigate risk in the decisions that they're going to make and to create value. And that is the fundamental point as both an investor and as a farmer that's critically important to me. Now, on the investment side, there's lots of other things that we need to understand. Can you protect your intellectual property? Can you manufacture this cost effectively? But if it doesn't work, or they can't prove that it works, then none of those other questions really matter. You can just move on to kind of what the next opportunity is. So you got to answer those questions really, really well. And that's what's going to generate the interest in terms of farmers wanting to try new things, investors wanting to basically invest in new companies. Really, why it all matters is it's about creating value for farmers. And what's really interesting, and I was thinking about that earlier today, the investment and development process start at the beginning and go all the way to the end, right? Start with an idea, I'm going to test it, I'm going to get it registered if that's required, I'm going to take it to a farmer. But unless it ultimately creates value for a farmer at the end, none of this matters. So in that respect, it's working your way backwards from the farmer all the way back to research to understand, what is going to work here. The knowledge of and discipline and assistance in understanding, here's where you use this product on your farm. It will not work everywhere. It might work on sandy soils with 0 to 3 organic matter, which might be your river bottom ground, which means you probably don't want to try this on your hilly knobs. I'm just making that up. But to understand exactly where it's going to fit adds a lot of value to a farmer. But if you also think about it from an experience standpoint, and this is what I could never figure out, because again, it's fairly intuitive. If I don't understand how something works or exactly what its function is, then how do I know where to place it? And so then it's random. It's literally throwing the dice every time you sell it to a customer. And there's going to be some customers that have a great experience if they try it on their right farm or perhaps right part of the farm in the right year, whatever that set of complexities or variables are that basically drive performance. But that's a huge risk, right? That's a huge risk, for a company to present to a farmer. That's a huge risk for a farmer to take, because it's literally throwing the dice every time you apply that product, because you just don't know for sure or with any high probability of where it's going to work. I liken that to, you go to the doctor's office and you're waiting to see the doctor to be diagnosed. And before you even get in to see the doctor, a physician assistant or somebody comes out, hands you a big bottle of antibiotics and says, here, go take this, you're going to feel great. Now, if I had a raging sinus infection and I take those antibiotics, and it was a bacterial infection, I probably feel pretty good about what just happened. If I have some kind of a viral infection and the antibiotic's not going to touch it, I'm not going to be very pleased with the prescription that I was given, because there was no diagnosis. And that's exactly the same in developing new technologies and the critical role that informed development takes, because they can narrow down all the possibilities to here's exactly where this product should fit and where you should go ahead and use it. And when you do that, you're maximizing value for the farmer, because they have a much higher probability they're going to see really good results. You're maximizing value for the company that sold that to the farmer, because they're going to have a repeat customer, and word of mouth is going to spread, and that's going to become their best branding. And if you're an investor that invested in that company because the company could profile exactly where it fit and demonstrate that fit, then you're going to be happy as well. And obviously the converse is true. If it's totally random, it's not 1 in 10 where an investor is going to be successful if that diligence hasn't been done on the front side. So again, creating value and mitigating risk are the most important things for both an investor and a farmer. And without really good, and I can't emphasize this enough, high quality, replicated data sets over a broad area in a period of time to basically demonstrate that, to give the farmer confidence to try it on their farm, is absolutely important. The last point that I would leave folks with, particularly those that are starting a business, I totally respect that what you have invented, you're incredibly proud of, and you believe every farmer will benefit from using it. And I absolutely believe that to be true. I also believe there are many, many people like you that have done the same thing and have the same belief about their product. Now, individually, obviously, there's one of each of you. Collectively, there's hundreds. Okay. As an individual farmer, I don't have time to talk to hundreds of people. I have to talk to my trusted advisor, and I have to have some screening mechanism that basically sets my priorities of what we're going to try on our farm. And because farming cycles have become so compressed, I don't have the time, and nor will I have a 5 year development cycle or trial cycle on my farm. I may try it once and then use it on my entire farm, or I may just try it on my entire farm if I believe the potential benefit associated with the use of that product is greater than the potential risk associated with using it. And risk is pretty narrowly defined. What is the possibility that the use of this technology caused my yield to decline? Because I raise perennial crops, I raise blueberries. If the answer is, that's interesting, I never really thought about it this way. If there were a 10% probability that it could lower my yields because of my high fixed costs, I don't know what the value proposition that I would accept on the other side in terms of gain would be that would cause me to go do that. And that's called asymmetric risk reward. For very high value crops, the risk of using a technology is far greater than the potential reward. But if somebody can demonstrate to me and I've got confidence in it, then I will adopt very, very quickly for the opposite reason there. So, again, data really, really matters. You can't short circuit it. You can't find enough new customers to replace the ones that you offended before, because this world is so small. You're going to run out of new customers before you have to go back and talk to the old ones. And farmers have a really, really long memory. Last thought I would leave you with in terms of why risk management is so important to farmers. And I was actually talking to one yesterday in Iowa. He's a fourth generation farmer, as am I, and very, very proud of that. And I think about it probably a little differently because I think about it as a business, and I bear some burden of legacy, but not a lot. There's a lot of farmers that are incredibly proud of being the fourth generation, and they should be, because there aren't very many businesses that make it to the fourth generation. And they don't want to be known as the one who lost the farm so it couldn't go to the fifth generation. So farmers are naturally risk averse. Most times they stay in business by the bad decisions they avoid, much more so than the good decisions that they make. And so being able to prove value to them and the fact that the risk has been mitigated, and the best way is to identify exactly where it works and where it doesn't, then that's, I believe, the path to success. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to answering some questions. Take care.